also known as that literary lady. Ms. Yolanda is the Division E Governor and a member of Speakerpreneur Toastmasters, Extreme Toastmasters, and Improv Masters Toastmasters. She's the VP of PR for Improv Toastmasters, Improv Masters Toastmasters, and the former Area 42 Governor. Yolanda is the founder and CEO of Bryant Consulting and LW Media Group, and provides literary, publishing, social media, and marketing services. She's an accomplished freelance writer and author, and a mentor to me. I really look up to Ms. Yolanda with her books and everything. I aspire to be like that literary lady. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Yolanda Johnson-Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I want to give a disclaimer before I start. I know you guys will get on me about this, but I admire people who can get up and do a speech without notes. And even in my advancement in Toastmasters, I'm going to try to do it without notes today, so bear with me here. Now, I want everyone to imagine you are at a conference. You're at an entrepreneurial conference, and you're inspired. And that keynote speaker comes down from the stage, someone whispers in your ear, "Hey, I told Bill about you. He wants you to speak at the next conference." What do? Do you take the challenge? Or do you just say, do you decline the offer? Never decline an offer. Just make sure that you are prepared for the speech or the engagement that you're getting ready for. So what I'm going to talk today about is preparation and practice, and this is from the Better Speaking series, and you have to do a couple of these speeches in order to get an advance award in Toastmasters, and many of you know that, and for those who don't, in Toastmasters there are several degrees and awards that you achieve, and you have to give these speeches. So, another one of my objectives is trying not to let the PowerPoint distract me. This is going to be a challenge. One thing that you have to do when you're preparing, and there's preparation that you do before you even show up to the actual event. You have to prepare your speech, you have to practice your speech, you have to make sure the keynote Toastmaster or the MC has your information, your introduction. Thank you. But the day of the event, when you come in, you want to look and see where the lectern is going to be, because depending on the event, there may or may not be a lectern. In this case, we have a lectern right here. So this is pretty easy. We know where it's set all the time. But there may be one in the corner. A lot of times you go to conferences and there's one in the corner. And you have to make sure if it's in the corner, can everyone in your view see you? If not, you have to request to make it maybe in the middle, or maybe everyone's on this side and you need to come to this side so everyone can see you. So you have to make sure the lectern is in proper place. Microphone usage. Now, depending on how big this conference is going to be, you may or may not need a microphone. Can everyone hear me now? Okay, so there's a small amount of people here, right? So as I go back here and I'm talking, and I'm talking, and I'm talking, and I'm talking. Can you guys hear me now? Barely hear me. So, as we're here, there are a small number of people. You may be speaking in front of hundreds of people. So you may need a microphone. So you may want to ask for a microphone and then test the microphone, because as we can tell in Toastmasters, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and preparation takes practice. So make sure the microphone is working properly and make sure everyone can hear you. So for example, the day of or the day before, bring some with you. Have them stand at the back of the room and use your microphone and make sure they can hear you. Room conditions. Now I'm having my own special summer here, so I'm always hot. But a lot of times in these conferences, they'll keep them cold. Now, it's better to err on the side of cold, because people can always bring a jacket. And it's been said that with the room being cold, people tend to stay awake more than when they are hot and dragging and want to fall asleep. But make sure it's comfortable for the masses. You can't please everybody, but make sure for the masses it's in a proper temperature. Visual aids. If you're going to use PowerPoint, make sure you feel confident with using PowerPoint. Now, one thing they tell you is not solely to depend on the PowerPoint. If you have to, keep some note cards just so you can go off the note card without having to turn your back to the audience, which you should never do, and look at the PowerPoint. You shouldn't do that. Now, it's okay to stand to the side, look at it, pause, and then finish your thought to your audience. You also may want to use flip charts. Now, flip charts get a little tricky. If you're using flip charts, like this one right here, can everyone see this? Exactly. So if there were 100 people here, and they were way back, they could not see this. So if you have a lot of people, you may want to refrain from using flip charts. Other visual aids are handouts. Handouts are always good because on top of you giving people the information, they can take information home with them on a piece of paper without having to wait for you after the conference to talk to you when you're probably going to be busy. So a point of reference on paper is good. So always have handouts. Okay, I want to go back to the microphones, the voice strain. If you have a cold and your throat hurts, you may really want to make sure your microphone works and make sure that you have a microphone because if you're straining and you can, like today, Terry seemed a little out under the weather to me, and it's kind of hard to hear what she's saying. So if you're talking to a group of people and they can't hear you, they're going to lose interest in what you have to say, so make sure you're prepared for that. Appropriate lighting. This lighting is okay. If I'm sitting in a conference, this might keep me awake, but I don't know if you remember the old Speakerpreneur building, the Revolution Mills building. The lights were so dim and it was so dark in the room, I feel depressed when I walked in the room. So other people may feel that way, so make sure the lighting is appropriate for the situation. Another thing, make sure you make leeway for latecomers. I like how this room is positioned because in some cases, there may only be this door right here. If the speaker is right here and someone comes through this door, they're going to distract. Everybody's going to look this way. They're not going to listen to what they have to say. As opposed to somebody coming through the back, tiptoeing. A couple people might look back and see who it is, depending on how much noise they make coming in the door. But otherwise, their attention is going to still be up front to the speaker. Competitive outside noise. The noise level here is pretty good, even though there's a factory next door. In some cases, you might have trucks going back and forth. You may have fire, if you're next to a fire station or a police station, the sirens can drown out the speakers. So you may want to make sure that if you are doing a conference, make sure if you have any say-so, request a room that is not so close to where there's going to be noise distracting you and your audience. Again, become familiar with your visual aids. I am still working on that. Locate it again where people can see. Again, the flip chart, if everybody can see it, you don't want to put it over here in the corner because then these people over here are not going to be able to see it. And they're going to be interrupting you saying, what does that say? I can't see it. Appropriately sized viewing screen. Everyone can see this, right? I love that we have this. Before we didn't have this. And everyone can see it. Now, however, if you're entertaining hundreds of people, who's been to T.D. Jakes Church in Dallas? Anybody? Now, you know they have screens all over the place because he has 10,000 members in one service. There's no way they can all see this screen. So there are different screens placed strategically around the sanctuary. So make sure that that's addressed as well. Handout distribution. Make sure you give someone or appoint someone to either hand out handouts at the beginning of your speech, or make sure they're on the desks or on the tables in front of the people before you actually start speaking. So that's not a distraction because if you take time as you're speaking and you get your handouts and you're walking around the room and handing out handouts, that's a little bit distracting. So make sure you either get those out before or you have someone do it for you. Rehearse the speech. Practice ideas, not words. I mentioned earlier that my goal is to not use notes and not use notes effectively, which is what I'm working on. So, in order to try to remember your speech so you don't remember it word by word, because some of us, and I think I can speak for some of us, who try to remember the words on the paper and we try to go with that. If we can picture the idea of what we're going to say, the words usually tend to come. Prepare a mental draft of the speech. You can memorize it if you want, but then going back to practicing the ideas and not the words. One thing I admire about, I've been asked to join Blue Moon Toastmasters as well. I'm a little intimidated. They do 45-minute speeches with no notes. That is scary. So I'm working on this, and I would suggest others to work on this as well. Finish each rehearsal session. So, like me, I did it in college. I waited till the day before the test before I went forward. So, speeches, I wait the night before and start practicing my speeches. Don't do that. Please start a week in advance. That way it'll give you a couple times to do run-throughs, maybe record yourself on video or a handheld recorder. One, to see how long it's going to take, and to see if your ideas are flowing the way they're supposed to. Improving your speech. Add improvements gradually. Sometimes we write our speech, and statistics say that we read and write at a 6th grade level. But as you get up here and you start speaking and you realize who your audience is, you start saying more intelligent words, more big words. Make sure that you don't start off doing that. It's okay to add that eventually, but don't do it so much that you actually start fumbling and you confuse yourself. And don't use words that you don't know the meaning of, because you'll look like, you know. Arrange for feedback. For those of you who have been to a conference or who have been to a TLI session, at the end of each session, they do what? They hand out feedback forms. How did I do? What can I improve? What did you like? What didn't you like? What would you suggest for the future? Because we all could use improvement. Provide an introduction, which I didn't do today. Make sure prior to the actual event that the person, the MC, that's going to introduce you has a proper introduction. And in most cases, they will ask you for an introduction, a bio, a picture, and things like that. But as we get busy, sometimes people forget. And here comes the last day, and they don't have that information. It's up to you to make sure they have that information whether they ask or not, because you don't want someone trying to introduce you, they don't know anything about you. And I'm not egotistical, but there are people who are egotistical. If you get their name wrong, if you get their accreditation wrong, they don't get upset. So make sure they have that information ahead of time. Prepare yourself physically. I was going to walk out here in some high-heel shoes. Now, back when I was young, I could wear shoes like Miss Chisa wears. But I'm older now, and I'm diabetic. I cannot walk in those shoes. So if you are like me, and you cannot walk in those shoes, do not wear those shoes for your speech. Especially if your speech is going to be 35 minutes long. Because I guarantee you, by the 15th minute, you'll have those on the floor, and that does not look professional at all. So make sure you've eaten. If you're diabetic, and I go back because I'm diabetic, make sure you've eaten so you don't get lightheaded and you don't faint. Make sure everything is okay and you're feeling well. Again, have a mental rehearsal right before you're being called on the stage. If you're in the back, go through your head what you're going to say, visualize how you're going to work the room, the eye contact, and everything else that you're going to need to do. In conclusion, Anon says good luck happens when preparedness meets opportunity. Prepare, prepare, prepare. I don't have a timer, but Mr. Toastmaster, Mrs. Toastmaster.
Very great information. Preparing, and I needed to know a lot of it. Thank you, Ms. Yolanda, for sharing that with us.